Welcome. For those who just joined, we are just getting settled and then we will jump in. And Corinne, why don't we just start by just talking about ourselves, and then we'll go into more content. But what we're gonna do for the next hour is answer any questions anybody has. I mean, the focus of sessions like this is answer any questions anyone has about values type stuff. We've also got an interesting topic that we're going to go through, which is 6 ways to make sure that you're making a really good decision. And so we're going to jump into that. But it would be great to spend some time answering questions too, which people can do in the chat or come off mute and describe like more fully the question, which can be really helpful. But first,
we should mention that we're also recording this session and just talk about what we're going to do about that and how to make sure this is a safe space for our participants.
Perfect. And I'm letting someone else into the lobby now too. And perfect. And so, yeah, so you would have seen potentially, if depending on when you registered, you would have seen a little piece saying, yeah, we are going to be recording sessions like this. It's great to be able to record sessions like this so that other people can hear answers to questions and hear really great questions and get access to this content too. So we are recording, and you can let that inform the extent to which you want to participate and ask your questions. So it would be great if folks could make sure they're muted so that there's really clear audio. And I think we will probably get started in a couple of minutes with the content. Oh, Corinne, oh, there you are. You're back. I keep seeing the big V.
I know. I'm on, let me just tell you folks, I'm on my phone in my car. My daughter has a soccer tournament, so I'm in Okotoks outside of Calgary, sitting in my car outside of Best Western. They won both their games, so they're in the medals game. So this is us being like real life, man.
That's right. Yeah, making it work. The good news is she won. And now you have more soccer time.
Exactly. So, but I think we've got good audio regardless. But I have lost the access to the document, Allie, just so you know.
Okay.
So I might need a little bit more. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know.
I've got it.
Do you want to say a couple things about you? Yeah. And then we'll jump into the content.
So I'm Corinne. I am the creator and one of the co-founders of Values-Based Living. I've been doing values-based living training in some iteration or another as a private company, but I've been a mediator for 14 years, which is really deeply connected to the values-based living work. This is my heart's passion to teach and talk about values. It is absolutely 1,000,000% transformed the way I show up in the world, the way I make decisions, the way I work with my daughter, and the way I navigate my life. So I love talking about this, and it's really hugely transformative, and I love to be able to talk to other people about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Corinne.
Yeah. How about you, Allie?
How about me? Well, my name is Allie Ansel, and I'm the other co-founder of Values-Based Living. And yeah, I'm also a mediator. I've been a mediator now for coming up on a decade, I think. And I also love it. And my day job is like mediating disputes between oil and gas companies and Indigenous groups and communities, landowners, that sort of thing. More reactive, right? People are already in conflict, and the values-based living work that we get to do is really fun and fulfilling because we get to interact with people who want to increase their ability and capacity to interact with the world a lot of times before the conflict comes up. And so that's really fulfilling for me. I love to do that sort of work. And the values piece, we've seen, I think, that in all the mediation work that we've been doing, the values component is really the key to helping people come to common ground when they're working with each other, but also get to know what's going on internally, and make those shifts internally so that we're good internally. And then the bonus is when we interact externally, it's just so much better and more meaningful and hopefully easier.
Mhm.
So like I was saying before, we're going to answer as many questions as we can in our hour together about any questions anyone has about values. If you've taken any of our courses and you want to be able to ask questions about that, you're welcome to. And also we've got, we're going to go into 6 ways to make a good decision. We've got a values-based decision-making course. It's like a course you can take online or you can take live. And we're going to give a little bit of a sneak peek from that to share 6 big ways to make sure you're making a good decision. And if you want to ask a question, you can do it in the chat. You can also raise your hand. I would say anytime, like don't feel like you're interrupting. Anytime you have a question, use the hand raise function, which is at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to navigate to the 3 dots and it'll show you the little hand raise button. If you're having a hard time with that, you can like wave your arms or put something in the chat to let us know you have a question, because we'd love to hear either in the chat, or if you want to like say it and give a more fulsome explanation of your question, that would be great too. So we'll wait for those prompts to let us know. But feel free to share them anytime. We will stop what we're saying to hear from you.
Does
Karina,
anybody
anything
want
else?
to?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, does anybody want to lead with a question? Get your questions up out front.
The first
By the
person
way.
gets the most airtime usually.
Yeah, welcome to Stephanie, Dominica, Greg, and Beatrice. Welcome. So is it okay if we just sort of start talking about how to make a good decision using your values, and then you guys jump in with any of your questions? Is that fair? Any thumbs up?
I love it.
That's cool.
Okay, let's start then. So this is 6 ways to make a good decision. And I'm gonna put a link at the end to a handout that we have that's like a fillable e-handout, or sorry, it's an e-handout that you can sort of like post these on your wall or on your like electronic desktop or whatever. If you want to just have them top of mind, it can be a helpful prompt. And that's a page from our, it's just honestly a page from our course that I've found really helpful. Okay, so first, before we go into the 6, this 6 ways to make a good decision at least prompted for me this question of, what do we mean by good decision? And so
Right.
Karine, the creator of all of the curriculum for these the values-based living courses, is probably the best person to answer that. Karine?
Yeah, well, get us started. I think the best way to make a good decision is to anchor it in my values. I'm not the best decision maker typically. I get pretty like, I want to gather a bunch of information. I want to poll everybody. I want to make sure I'm making the rightest decision that's ever been made. And like, I can get a little over analytical and a little bit paralyzed in the process of like, oh, I didn't actually make the decision. So what I find is that knowing which values are part of this decision, what's going on for me, what's getting activated, which of my values are contributing or activated by this conversation or this decision, getting those right out front, and then working through how am I going to make a decision using those values. And maybe I'm even shopping for more values of like, yeah, it's not these ones, so maybe I need to go look for values that are also part that aren't usually my tippy tops.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah. And we're going to get into this, but this
Mhm.
good decision thing is tricky because, like, other people might not agree that it's a good decision,
Right.
but we believe it is because it's in line with our values.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. So I'm just going to tell you, I'm just going to list high level what the 6 ways are, and then we're going to go into them more fully. So the first way to make a good decision is to speak your truth about your values. The second one is to walk your talk. The third one is to not betray yourself. The fourth one is to clearly communicate your values. The fifth one, take responsibility for your life. And the sixth one, this is my favorite one, not stay uncomfortable in order to make people around you more comfortable. And there's actually a bonus
Mhm.
one here at the end, which is, I think, a really important piece too. And we can go into that at the end. So the first one is to speak our truth about our values. And yeah, I could go on and on about this, but Karina, is there anything that you want to say about this one?
Yeah, this one's a big one. Um, so there's when we do the workshop, there's actually a matrix that we walk you through, and it's how do my values interact with it? It's pretty much what I was talking about. But it's really knowing that my values are my truth, and then being able to anchor my decision. This is my truth. I don't need to um, ask anyone else's permission or opinion about my values. Others can have negotiation. Often we're making decisions with others. I can take their perspectives and hopefully their values into account, but I am still really clear about what my values are and how they're being um, activated, either positively or frustrated by this decision. And I'm really staying true to who I am, what those decisions are, whether that's exactly reflected in the decision, but I know how I got to that decision. So being really honest with ourselves and being really honest with other people when we speak from a place of values, there's no wondering what I mean when I say I value efficiency. And I made this decision because it is really efficient. And for me, efficient is about long term, a good solution, not the fastest. That's another definition of efficiency. My definition is a really sustainable decision that we don't have to keep making every second day. And I explain it that way. And it creates clarity and understanding with the other people that are part of the decision or just with myself. And that is just really important to the negotiation within myself and in how I explain myself if I want to explain myself with others. I'll build that understanding and trust with the other person that's involved in the decision. What do you want to add to that?
I just really like this piece about defining the value. We do a circle every month, like a virtual circle, and there's been a component where people are defining. We'll pick a value, and then each of us will define what the value means. And the definition of the same value is actually slightly or sometimes very different for each person. And that alone is really illuminating, because how often do we throw out values words without a lot of context or without a lot of definition to go with it? Like something about respect, for example. Respect is something that most of us agree that is important to us. But if we're going to give examples of how that shows up for us, or if we were going to try to define it, it would probably be slightly different. Um, and I find that stuff fascinating, because there's a big difference between saying, this person clearly doesn't respect me, and then going, okay, what am I actually talking about when I say respect? What are ways I know I'm being respected? And have I filled them in? Like, have I told them that that is what my expectations are? Um, so that bleeds into a couple of later points, actually, the sharing piece. But I love how powerful the tiny, often skipped step of defining our values is. So that's this piece about speaking our truth about our values. And the second one is to walk our talk. So, Karine, what does it mean to walk our talk in with the lens of decision making?
Yeah, like actually doing the things, walking through what are my values and then making sure I follow through with that decision, following through, staying true to my values and making sure that the values that like I've thought through, I've taken that introspective time to stay with myself, to know what I need to do, and following through on the decision and then following through on the action. It's not just it's not just step one, talking to myself about the decision, or even step two about making the decision, but it's putting it into action and following through all the way along. And being aware in those three steps and ongoing, um, doing the self-observation of where are my values continuing, the ones that I thought were going to be satisfied by this decision or frustrated by this decision, where am I continuing to monitor and self-observe? Did my assumption play out? Am I right that those followed through and they were frustrated or satisfied in the way I thought that they would be? Was this the satisfying decision that I wanted it to be? Or do I need to recalibrate? And did I learn, more importantly, honestly, than any decision that you make, is what did you learn from the process about yourself? And what did you learn after you made that decision? What did you learn about yourself? What deeper understanding or perspectives did you gain in that process? This is the gold.
Yeah, like how many times will I make a decision? Like I'll use all of our material. I'll use our decision making matrix to try to make it, whether it's a big or small decision. And then I'll come back later and I'll realize I didn't do it. I made the decision, but I actually didn't do the thing, which is itself really fascinating because if all of my values were taken into account and illuminated and known to me, then I would be so excited to make the decision. It would be so fulfilling to make the decision that it would be like clear path, smooth sailing, let's go. So there was something going on. There's something going on for me when I say I want to make a decision and then I don't do it. There's a value that's getting jammed up that's maybe not as known to me, or maybe it is, but not to the extent that I really need it to be able to keep it from running the show. Like I'm thinking about setting goals for myself. And by the way, at the end of the month, we'll do it every January. We have a goal setting workshop that we'll do at the end of January, because January can be a sticky month for setting goals and trying to, follow through with them. And how can we increase the chances of being able to follow through with these goals we set? Values really helps with that. But if I'm setting a goal for myself, especially if it's around health, because I have a lot of expectations for myself around, I don't know, what I think I should be doing around health. And so I get in my head about what I should do, what I should set around health. And I'm like, well, it's in the data. It says if you go for a walk for 20 minutes every day, you will live longer. So I should do that. And that's my goal. And then I don't do it. And I'm like, okay, well, if that was actually a decision that was in line with my values fully, I would have done it. So there is a value that's getting jammed up by this decision. And maybe it's something about time. Maybe I have a story about time and not having or taking the time 20 minutes a day. Or maybe there's something else going on that I'm not totally aware of. For me, for this particular example, I figured out that if I go for a walk alone, I'm much less likely to go. But if I go for a walk with a friend, then I'm getting like teamwork satisfied. That's a big value for me. Belonging is being satisfied. That's a big one. I get like accountability is present in more like in richer ways. I'm following through with what I said I wanted to do, but I'm also getting help with that from other people. So I couldn't, it wasn't true that my full self was making a decision to go for a walk 20 minutes a day. But a walk for 20 minutes a day with a friend, maybe I'm still not going every day, but I'm going a lot more than if I were before. So it's that make a decision and then check back, like Kareen is saying, reflect back. How do I need to edit this to be more in line with what I'm actually up to here? So that's the walk your talk. It's so much harder than 3 words.
Totally.
And totally worth it. And the reason why, even though Kareen and I are partners in this business, I will ask her for coaching support a lot because I'll hit that wall and be like, I want this, don't I? Okay, I need to talk this through. Kareen, help me see the value that I can't see, that's influencing this inability to do the thing I thought I wanted.
Yeah. And same, vice versa. Exactly.
Yeah, it's tricky business. So that second one, walk your talk. The third one is to not betray ourselves. The word betray is it's kind of
It's
a
a
lot,
loaded
hey?
word, isn't it? Yeah. And it's a big, big deal, especially around this values work. If we are putting and let's just back up a little bit, like values are here in our lives, sort of motivating our actions and our thoughts and our feelings, regardless if we're aware of them or not. And if we are true to ourselves, true to those values, spend the time to excavate them, elevate them, and then do something with them. And then at the last minute, we chuck them out the window at the first challenge, at the first disagreement, in order to people please, or because we have trauma responses. That is a really deeply disturbing to our psyche kind of behavior, regardless if we're aware of it or not. If we know that we're doing this to ourselves, or if we're not aware that we have done that to ourselves, that is really important. So the more we are bringing these up and creating this awareness, the more we are aware when we leave them or abandon them or betray them, the more we're aware of the link to the consequences of shame, anger, frustration. Maybe we're projecting our frustration, sadness, fear, whatever onto somebody else, saying, you did that to me. But there's a bigger truth that actually I contributed or I did it to myself. I'm going to pause. Dominique, I see you've come off on camera. Do you want to raise something? If you don't, you just want to be on camera, that's cool. But if you had something you wanted to add, I would love to hear it.
I didn't want to add anything. I just thought, as you, the two speakers, I think it's fair for you to see the faces that you're speaking to.
I have no idea.
But sometimes I'm like on and off the video because I'm hacking up a bit of a lung because I'm just getting over a cold.
Fair. And thank you. I appreciate that. And connection is a strong value for me. And so it's easier to connect. But I like that you all have pictures at least, as opposed to just like initials in the corner or the big V. So I appreciate that and I honor that. Thanks. So yeah, that big beach. Whoop. Oh gosh. Sorry guys. Can you see me? Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I just dropped my phone. Is a big piece, and we need to be aware when we do it, and need to be like, hey, we can celebrate when we don't do, especially if it's a typical or a standard behavior of at the first challenge from somebody that I love or somebody that has power in my life, if I know that I'm not abandoning myself, the amount of intensity of pride and even just like self-sovereignty and ownership is just like next. I should warn you, I have a language advisory warner. It's next fucking level. It is amazing. It changes the game and it changes how you feel about yourself. It creates self-trust, which leads to increased self-esteem, self-confidence. I know that I can trust when I go into this kind of negotiation. I'm going to take care of myself, even if I don't win the argument or don't land the outcome that I wanted in this decision. I know that I advocated for myself. I stood up for my values. I stood up for me. That is the battle. That is the win. If you also have a positive outcome of here's what I dreamed I wanted and I actually got it, hey, that's a double win. Allie, I'll pass it over to you, Allie.
I love that. Yeah. I'll just add that one of the ways that I can tell that I am betraying myself, which like happens a fair amount, and I need to work pretty hard on being kind to myself when it does, and then continuing to learn so that I can do it less in the future. But the ways that I can tell that I am betraying myself is when I am making decisions based on guilt, and when I am and when I am feeling resentful as a result of it. So if I'm feeling resentful of something that someone else is doing, it means that I have betrayed myself. It's such a blaming thing. Resentment, it tricks me into thinking, okay, that person clearly doesn't appreciate yada yada yada. They're really squishing my amount. For me, it's like time often. My time is being restricted because this person is taking too much of it. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm allowing this to happen. So I am betraying myself. And there's something I need to pay attention to here. But the beginning stages of that is if I'm trying to make a decision and I'm really factoring in the things that make me feel guilty as very influential. I saw that a lot over the holidays in myself and also the people I was talking to, having some really interesting discussions with people over the holidays about, what I would really like to do, or maybe even not getting to that phase, just saying, the family would really appreciate it if we spent time with them, or, there's just, I would love to just relax on Christmas, for example. But, we got to go visit those 3 houses because otherwise they'd just be so sad if they didn't see us. And like digging into that more it's so interesting because guilt is a really big player there. And it's really hard to even let ourselves say internally, even like, if I just did exactly what I wanted and pretended for just a moment not to care about the consequences of anyone else's feelings, just as a thought experiment. It feels so mean to even say that. If I didn't care about anyone else as much as I cared about myself, what would I actually want? And then if people are willing to go there, it's like, can be very different from what we're actually doing. I wouldn't see anyone, they might say. I wouldn't see a darn person. I would ask everybody to come to me instead of traveling or whatever else comes out. And then quickly, but I couldn't do that, And I'm not saying that this decision making is wrong and it's important to just do whatever we want all the time without caring about the consequences of others. But there's a slippery slope there about valuing other people's opinions before our own, and what other people want and say they need before us. And it actually harms them, I think, when we do that. And it harms us. It harms them because they don't get the true version of us. They get this smaller version that we need to show up as because we wounded ourselves to be there. And I bet that people that love us want the full version of us, even if they see us a little less. When we're there, we are fully there.
Yeah.
And anyway, to me, that feels more important.
Totally. And I would just add one thing in there about forgiveness, self-forgiveness with this betrayal piece. When we betray, it's just a matter of noticing and honoring and saying, like, I didn't get it that time, and I know I'll get it another time. And there's a darn good reason I had to give that one up. That's okay. And you know what I do often when I'm really aware that I've let a value get run over or frustrated or abandoned is that I will figure out, I'll sit with that value and be like, what else could I give you, little buddy? And then go and find another way to satisfy that same value so it doesn't ache or look for an unhealthy way to get satisfied. That's a more unconscious thing. It will still seek. And so I forgive myself with non-judgment. That happened. That's okay. Not awesome. I'll get it another time. How can I seek to satisfy that? And just move on. But the self-awareness piece, that's beautiful.
Greg put a comment in the chat. Thanks for that, Greg. And just a reminder to others, feel free to do that too. It doesn't have to be a question. It can be a comment. He's just saying thanks for commenting on, I don't know if you can see it, Kareen, but it's like, thanks for the examples. And I think about the family piece, especially communicating those principles. Thanks, Greg. Okay, so the next one, so that was around betraying ourselves. And the fourth one is to clearly communicate our values. Yeah, this is going to relate in some ways to the piece earlier about speaking our truths, but there's more tangible stuff going on here in how we clearly communicate our values. So, Kareen, what would you say about that?
Yeah, this one is a little bit about involving the other person. And we did touch on this because they're so interconnected. These are nuances. But the deeper dive on this, we rarely make decisions in a vacuum or just by ourselves. Sometimes we are, and that communicating that value with ourselves, there's a conversation that can be going on and a conversation with others. And the clearer we are about which values and what those values that like we had said earlier, what they mean to us and what they mean to this decision that's being made. We don't have to go into every single decision with this like vomit of information of, oh, I just want you to know what my values are. And but we owe it to ourselves to have that conversation and slow it down with ourselves. And the more we do that, the faster we'll be at making those decisions, the faster we'll be at identifying which values are connected to those decisions. So that's where this communication needs to start with inside. And then you share them judiciously, that's the word. Here's what I need you to know about the decision I made and how that connects to my values. You don't have to share all of them, but share the ones that make sense to bring understanding and use that understanding to elevate the relationship with that other person. The more that you can talk about your values with somebody that's trusted in your life, the more they can understand you and the more you're able to ask them values-based questions. And what does that mean? So I'm telling you what this decision means to me, and I'm wondering what that means to you. And now your conversation is more about understanding each other on a values level than about the actual decision that gets made. The decision will be stronger and great for it. But again, it's the conversations and the understanding with yourself and with the other folks in the room. Next level. You're upping the game. You're changing the agenda from how are we going to make the fastest decision to how are we going to make a decision that increased our understanding and our trust with each other.
This is a really courageous one too, actually. It's one thing to have a sense of our values internally, but then to share them is a really courageous thing. And I like what you said, Kareen, about sharing with people that we trust, at least at first. I know when I started to interact with people that I've known for a long time differently because I was getting more in alignment with my values, it was really scary and I was ready to be just judged, you know. I'm getting into a better relationship with like how much rest I need, like how much non-social time, I should say, that I need. So there's a value there, like around rest or like solitude or recharge time or something. And so when I'm hanging out with, say, family for like 3 days, previous me would have this story about it's only 3 days. I need to spend as much time with them as I possibly can to make the most of it. And so I would max myself out socially, and I would go home and I would just be depleted. And the story that would be embedded is hanging out with my family is exhausting, which is probably not what any of us would like to have about the story of our family. And so in getting more into relationship with how much rest works for me, I was starting to go to bed earlier when everybody else is still up, and take breaks during the day to go for walks by myself. And at first, when I'm sharing this, when I'm communicating, like, guys, I'm going to go for a walk, I'll see you in a half an hour, or okay, I'm going to bed, there's a dissonance there, and everybody's like, what, you're going to bed? Like, we're about to play cards, or or can I come for a walk with you? And I'm like, how do I share this? But there's this incongruent moment where two things: they're seeing new behavior from me, and so they're noticing the difference and pointing it out. But number two, in this case, I came from my family, so we have a lot of similar values that can similarly get into overdrive. So there's a funny thing happening when I'm sharing, like, I'm just going to go take some time for myself. And then other people in the family are mad at me for taking time for myself because they don't have time for themselves. And they're like, if I don't get it, you don't get it. And I'm like, why don't you get it? Do you need it? Like, I'm not going to wade into that. You deal with that yourself. But there's this funny, like, because it's so hard to live our values, we have this like funny sense that if we aren't able to do it, no one else should be able to either. So there can be some pushback when we try to follow with that. And so it really takes courage to share that and have nobody else in the room identify with that value, or have people who do but don't feel like they can own it try to keep you from having a relationship with that value, and holding fast and not letting, again, the guilt of that situation over there that's actually not our responsibility influence whether or not we're allowed to have access to something that's important to us. So again, it's a deep one, and it's why we start in our training with getting to know your values deeply first, and then once you have them locked in to a certain extent, then communicate them. Because trying to do it in the tender moments when we're just getting to know them it can throw us off course if we're starting to communicate before we really feel like we have ownership of them. It can make us think that we don't.
Really well said.
So that's the clearly communicating our values. Number 4. Number 5 is to take responsibility for our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and similar but different.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple pieces on this, but Kareen, what would you say?
Yeah, I would just lead with, like, I know from me, there's a couple of different like ways that we can get jammed up around decision making. Either like I get that analysis paralysis, other people they're the decision makers in the family, and everyone just drops off their problems at their door. And it's like, you're the decision maker. You solve the problems. I have given you the problem. You're welcome. And there's a couple of different things where when we focus on responsibility, we can say, it's my responsibility to not pull the world for my decisions. And that changes my mindset to being like, how am I going to take responsibility? One, to know what I want, not just what everybody else wants, but leave myself out. I need to take responsibility to know what I want. I need to take responsibility. If this is my decision, I've checked, this is my decision to make. I need to make that decision. And like we said earlier, I need to execute on that decision. So that's one piece of it. And the other one is challenging responsibility. Like, I'm responsible for my life, which means I'm not responsible for your life or yours or yours. I mean, littles are kids under a certain age, but I have an early teenager, and my job is to teach her how to make her own decisions. My job is to teach her how to take responsibility for her life, for her education, for her good choices, rather than making them for her. There's a point where I checked, that is my job. And then there's a point where my job is to teach her how to take responsibility and just being aware. And then there's people who are not children, but still are abdicating responsibility for their decisions. When we're aware of what we're responsible for, we're also aware of what we are not responsible for. And maybe we participate in the decision, but we don't make the decision. Maybe we're participating in contributing opinions or values. My thoughts, here's what I need to see in the outcome, but I don't need to make the decision. And maybe it's when the decision is made, I am responsible for executing the decision, or I have a part of that execution. Just being really thoughtful about where we are in the decision-making process and what I have responsibility or don't have responsibility for. That's a huge piece. And it's a big mindset piece, but it's a game changer.
Yeah. What do I have responsibility for and what do I not have responsibility for? And that is not the same answer for every example. It's not the same answer for every question or every person rather. Yeah, something I just want to say too, when I think of taking responsibility for my life, this section, I just want to add another like different piece that's still related to the topic around just that when we make decisions, there are consequences, and values-based decisions are not always comfortable all the time. One of the best examples I love to come back to because it's so relatable is this security and freedom interplay. Most of us value security, most of us value freedom, and that can show up in the jobs that we choose. And we're usually choosing more freedom or less freedom, more security or less security, depending on what we're choosing. So, having a stable day job, 9 to 5, this is what you know you're going to make, leans more to security, but then you're less able to access your time maybe, or you're sacrificing something else. And I think we can leap to this idea that, well, if freedom is important to you, then you should quit your job and be an entrepreneur and like just jump into that and go for it. And I'm not saying don't do that. Like Karina and I have this we're entrepreneurs in this way, and it's very useful. But I think we get tricked, or something happens when we go, wow, I'm really not I'm really not liking my day job right now. But I can't seem to quit and start my own business. And it can be easy to say that that's because you just need to have faith and leap and get in there and go for it. But there's a important consequence to that. In this taking responsibility for my life piece, there's a really big consequence to, in this example, taking the leap and jumping right into freedom and losing a little bit of that security, of course. And there's also a sacrifice to doing the opposite, staying in, say, a 9 to 5 for a number of years. And I think we can get stuck in thinking that it needs to be one or the other, or you'll be happier if you quit your day job. You'll be happier because you'll have more freedom, but not having security is very difficult, and so I think we judge sometimes. I see judgment when someone's trying to take this big courageous leap to leave the day job that they don't like, to follow their dreams and build a business that's in line with their passions and that sort of thing. And and I just don't think it's as simple as that. And ultimately, we are the ones who are dealing with the consequences of these actions. So and no one else. So it is really worth taking, paying attention to, and not letting the influences of what everyone else is doing run the show. So I would just add that piece. And we have another person, I believe, who just joined. Oh no, they popped out. Maybe they'll come back. I let them in the lobby and then they're gone again. So, okay, so taking responsibility for our lives, the sixth piece.
Oh, there's a question.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Dominica.
Hi, I have a question. So around the being mindful and thoughtful of one's role in the decision-making process, I'm thinking of situations where, we, as adult children, with our older parents, I'll give a very specific example. My husband is got a background in finance, and he's wanting to support his mother, who's in her, in her 70s, and he wants to help her make the right decision, and sort of digging her heels in. And she's hoping that maybe if she doesn't make a decision, that somehow things are just going to miraculously, fix themselves. And practically speaking, if she doesn't make a decision, the consequences will fall on him a little bit in terms of her making sure that she's okay in the end. How do you navigate that?
Oh my gosh, this is really yeah, I went through this also. And being able to and I don't know what the relationship and trust is with the parent and the child here, in this case your husband and his mom, but even what you just said, like, here's what I care about. I have this background. I want you to do make a good decision. I see you not making that decision, and I know that if you don't, that there will be consequences, and I will feel responsible. Even though I didn't make that non-decision, I will still feel responsible, whether it's mine to fix. Maybe I have that, then I'll have to pick it up and fix it, or I will feel like I didn't advocate hard enough or take care of you well enough. Like, even that is sometimes unsaid. And I don't know how that feels, but you said it so nicely. I don't know how you could hear that and not be like, oh,
Yeah. I love that. That's
and it's so
wonderful.
funny because we can talk about it. Like, it's almost like we can narrate the situation to other people, but we can't do it with the people. And I don't know why it is. And it's highly relatable, let me tell you. Like, when I can explain the situation to other people and they're like, oh my God, it's so obvious. And I'm like, I know, right? Did you tell that person? Oh my God, no. That makes tons of sense. So maybe that's a very easy place to go. And also, like, anchor it with the values. For me, it's so hard to see whatever it is he's got a finance perspective. So he's going to have some really like tangibles, like security, safety, efficiency around decisions. Like, you cannot make a decision. That's not an efficient way to do it. I would also love to know what her values are. And if you can figure out open-ended questions to figure out what her values are, like, what is it that you care about around money for the future, and just sort of finding your elegant, situationally appropriate ways to figure that out, and then saying, oh, I see that that's what you want. And I see that this decision you're making doesn't line up with that. I wonder, and even like, I do this a lot with my hands. I see you're doing this, and I see you're doing this, and they don't line up for me. Can you help me understand the difference between what you say and what you're doing? Because I bet you there's a good reason. I just can't see it yet, my dear. Can you help me understand that? And that's often where they're like, look, I'm not walking when I'm talking. There's actually a piece here that has been locked in my heart that has been yet unsaid. and you spending a non-judgmental time with open-ended questions with me, really trying to understand, it unlocked a piece that I didn't even know I had. I couldn't even see it in myself sometimes. And even if I feel a little, even like a little emotional just thinking about those kinds of like beautiful, heart opening conversations. Um, even if she still doesn't make a decision, even if there's a consequence that falls through the crack, she doesn't like break open her RSPs or whatever the financial situation is, the opportunity to create understanding and loving conversation is absolutely stunning. I don't know if that helps. Allie, what do you want to add there?
I just want to hit harder what you said at the end. Like, regardless of the actual outcome, parent and child will probably feel more connected at the end, which in itself is a really lovely win.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I wish
Dominica,
you
for that
well with that
question.
one.
Yeah, good luck.
Gosh, that's so relatable. And it's so like transferable to so many decisions, in that transferring of power from the adult to the child, that end of life kind of space is, oh my gosh. Yeah. Those are big heavy
Awesome.
ones.
Yeah, totally. Okay, we have a little over 5 minutes left, and we've got one more piece, so that's perfect. And the last piece is number 6, to not stay uncomfortable in order to make people around me more comfortable.
Oh,
Which is so opposite of what social norms, especially in Canada, kind of tell us,
yeah.
like to put our needs before others is selfish, and to like people want on their like tombstones things like she always gave everything she had, like she was always giving, she never asked of anything for herself, like these are just her accolades. And again, people who live by that, I'm not saying that they didn't contribute incredibly to their community, and I'm not saying that anything bad about that person, but what I'm saying is number 6 points to a different option. Green, what do you want to say
Yeah.
about this one?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know that we can say anything more than just that one statement. It's just, we need to be present in our own lives. We need to advocate for ourselves as equally as we advocate for others. And it's just a matter of saying, like, I'm no less important, I'm not more important, but I am important. And somehow in this endeavor, exactly like you described, Ellie, to remove myself or abandon myself is the easiest and most obvious way to go. And it doesn't even make sense when you like sort of even lay it out like that, like obviously. In practice, that is not. I mean, there are some people, a certain proportion of the population, who find that incredibly easy to do. And let's assume that because we're here having this conversation, that we're not like uh, antisocial personality disorder kind of folks. They're not the ones that are self-selecting into this kind of conversation. And so let's assume that this is something that we often do with the highest of intentions, the best of intentions. It's just a terrible idea. And it's a mindset shift that once we start having this introspection and I care about what I think. Kareen, what do you think about this? What are your values? Oh, I value this and I value this. Just that behavior alone puts me on the map, puts me in the conversation, puts me into the decision-making process. Where am I in the decision-making matrix? I am now present. I have responsibility. I'm making myself present. And yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that. Like, yeah, so important.
Yeah, it really is. And actually the last like bonus piece here is sort of the flip side of this coin. So point 6 is not staying uncomfortable in order to make people around me more comfortable. The flip side of that coin is living in integrity with my values also means that I won't force another person to be uncomfortable to please me or to satisfy my values. and acknowledging that they also have their own values to meet and pursue. They may accommodate me and I may accommodate them, but this forcing and guilting and shaming is off the table now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a big one too in that parent-adult relationship, or in the spousal relationship, partner relationship, or in that power dynamic in the workplace. Yeah. We need to know if we're being made uncomfortable, how to identify that, how to have a vocabulary for that, and how to step outside of that, and how to know when we're doing it.
And by the way, we're not talking uncomfortable in terms of like, I'm learning a new thing and I'm excited about it and I'm learning and growing and stretching a muscle. It's more like I'm changing my shape in life to accommodate this other person. You know, discomfort is actually a really important thing for us to endure, to grow and learn, but we're talking about something else. Are there any other comments or questions in our last couple of minutes before we close for the day?
Really fun.
Oh yeah, Dominica. Yeah, the bonus number 7 is that flip side of the coin. That other, is there a bonus? Yes, there is. Yeah, and that's so that number 6 is is not stay uncomfortable in order to make people around me comfortable. And yes, the bonus number 7 is just dipping our toe in this piece that's really not a focus of what we talked about. Like, you notice how the whole time we were talking about how we are, like, we're number 1. that is really, really important. And so it felt important too, to just point to the fact that we can also honor that attempt in other people to do the thing that we're doing, which is help them living in integrity as well. Like, I see you trying to do that over there, and I'm not going to get in the way of you working to live in integrity too.
It's beautiful.
Okay. Yeah. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions that come up to you later. We love stuff like that. You have our email because you got an email from us to come here, most likely. So yeah, if you just want to have a chat, we are so up for doing that. And if you have any questions about anything else we offer, just, yeah, feel free to ask. People can also look at our stuff and kind of get overwhelmed with the different options. So if you just want to have a chat, we'll do that all the time. Like, just give us a phone call, like no charge or anything, and we'll just sort of talk through the different options and see if there's something that would make most sense for people based on what they're dealing with in the moment. So, and we're going to do another one of these next month with a different topic. So if more questions come up for you, then please feel free to join. It was so nice to hear from you in the chat. And Dominica, thanks for being willing to let us hear your voice. That was really amazing. And thanks for joining, Stephanie. I appreciate seeing you there from the beginning too. And have a lovely day, everybody.
This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Take care.
Take care.